To make this very concise, just try to do things in a different key or reorder the way you write or produce, and you just may find that you have brand new ideas. Next tip. If I were you, I would seek out new motifs, maybe new scales, or maybe new chord progressions. And this is similar to the previous point, but I want to go a little further into detail. And this, fair warning, I'm going to get into just a bit of music theory, but I believe that having some of these new things at your disposal, again, motifs, different modes, maybe different scales, different chord progressions, it will allow for you to have just a different way of going about the creative process. So let me, again, illustrate this by way of a story. I was stuck in terms of just finding new ideas. So I was out poking around the internet, just looking at some music-related stuff, and I came across a scale that I never, ever heard of in my entire life. I've been at this for many years. I've heard of minor scales. I've heard of major scales. I've heard of pentatonic scales and whatever. The list goes on. But I came across something called the octatonic scale. Octatonic. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And you can look this up. Just Google it. Like octave. Octatonic scale. So this scale is a series of notes, 8 notes, not 7. And each note, as you play them, you will alternate between a half step and a whole step. So you'll play 1, half step 2, whole step 3, half step 4, and that's how the pattern goes. Or you can reverse it. You can do the opposite of just what I mentioned. So you can swap out the half step for the whole step. If that's confusing, again, if you Google it, it will make a lot of sense. The point is, when I stumbled across this scale, it forced me to look at music very differently. And then, of course, I jumped online and looked at a few YouTube videos about the octatonic scale. And as I sat and played around with it, I'm like, oh, you know what? The chords that are called for within this particular scale or mode, or however you want to define it, they're very different than the typical major scale or minor scale. So I wound up one day, just for fun, creating like this cinematic piece of music due to the sound of the chords that had to be present given these weird spacing of the notes for this particular scale. This was a pretty cool endeavor, and it really caused me to stretch from a creative standpoint. And now it's something that I use as a way of creating, again, this cinematic type of sound. So again, the lesson is try to find something new out there, then use that as the basis for your creation. Meaning, a different mode, like a Dorian mode or Aeolian or octatonic, as I mentioned, or try to create a song that maybe have more complex chords. For instance, if you're always using your basic triad, meaning like a C, E, G, maybe play around with making that, and that was a C major chord, maybe play around with a C2 chord, play around with a C9 chord or a C11, or the point is, I want you to take what you know and go just a bit further than where you have before. And you may find that going further, exploring new chords, new modes, new scales, that these things will open up a brand new mindset. Oh, and you know what? While I'm thinking about it, I'm going to throw in a bonus tip for you. If you're looking to really break the cycle of stagnation, go take lessons. Go take music lessons. Now, please hang with me here and hear me out. Maybe you feel that you're proficient with the instrument that you play. What I want you to do is not just take a lesson, music lesson or music lessons, but go take lessons in a brand new instrument. That's really the bonus tip. So for instance, I mentioned that I'm pretty proficient with piano or playing the keyboard. I could go take music lessons at this stage in my life. I don't think it would hurt. But what I've done recently is I've enrolled in guitar lessons. And I've played guitar for many years as well, but not as proficient as the keyboard. So me taking guitar from a guy that's really, really proficient at playing the guitar, when he's explaining certain things, it's just opening my mind up to new ways of doing things. In fact, while I've been studying the guitar, I came across something called the Egyptian scale. I'm like, I've heard of the minor scale, like the melodic minor scale, but this Egyptian scale was a bit different than the ones that I knew on the piano. So just by me jumping into playing the guitar and using this Egyptian scale, I'm like, oh, you know what? This is a different way of going about playing something. Now, I'm not sure personally if I would use the Egyptian scale in any of my music, but by virtue of me getting into the guitar, I was introduced to a new musical motif, a motif that I certainly don't use on a regular basis, but it just allowed me to see a broader view of the music world. So if you can, go out and take some music lessons. And this is not for the purpose of you being a virtuoso in a brand new instrument. It's simply for the sake of you being introduced to a different way of going about creating music. Who knows, you may discover a secret talent for another instrument. And I'm telling you, this will have huge benefits, not only for the music creation process, but also from a producing standpoint. So I was out recently with some guys doing some music, and the guy strolled in with his guitar. You know, he set it up and started playing, and we were going through some different songs and chords and things like that. And for whatever reason, he was struggling with a couple of the chords. And I'm not that proficient on guitar, but I'm like, hey, you know what? You may want to just put your hand here and go with this note or go with this version of the chord or this inversion. And automatically, I felt like I started to have more value overall because I've been taking lessons. Again, I'm not that sweet with the guitar, but just me going into that, it gave me a different view of the creation process to the point where when I'm producing people who are playing guitar, I can actually have a bit more input on that process. Hopefully that makes sense, man. And you know what? If you do these things, you will be more proficient at the music game, and most certainly you will break out of that place of stagnation and just having writer's block. You will have new ideas. Hey, so make sure you subscribe to Success with Music. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify. Hey, give us a review so that we can keep the content coming. And just as a reminder, go over to our main page, successwithmusic.com, and just take a look at the Master Melody course. If it's not a fit for you at this time, not a big deal, because we always got free content on the podcast. But if it is something that you're looking to get into, the premium version of our course will allow for us to review one of your songs and give you direct and detailed feedback. So again, it's worth the investment. Yo, share the podcast and check us out on the next episode. $10 of gas won't fill the tank. No, this just gets old. I know there's gotta be a better way for me in this life. That